Councilors Antipas, Grimm, Morton, Carazati, and Watson. Councilors absent are Councilors Barber and Councilor Knoll.
Thank you very much. Rich Moravsik, could you lead us in the salute to the flag before we get going? Thank you.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we suspend the rules to consider the Democratic nominee for the council seat was just vacant. That's my motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules. Is there any discussion on this? Yes, Dean.
Just normally our business would be put on a calendar. This is, at least since we're voted on, we run for election, and this is obviously an important seat to fill. I've got no problem with the selection himself. I just have a problem with suspending our rules when they could easily have been put on our agenda, the COW or just the town council agenda. This is basically a surprise for me. So on that basis, just because I'm guarding our privileges, I'm going to object.
Okay. Any other discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor of suspending the rules say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? That passes 5-1. So now the rules are suspended. And,
You want me to, I'll move
please.
that the council accept Rich Moravsik as our new councilor once he's been sworn in. I don't know how else to say it, but that's my motion.
Second.
Second.
we have a motion and a second to have Rich Moravsik sworn in as councilor. Any further discussion on this? Yes, go ahead.
Has he been sworn in?
No. He will be if we say
And she can do that?
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Just confirming.
Any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That passes 6-0. And Rich, why don't you come on up and have your swearing in?
Get sworn in.
Raise your right hand, please. Mr. Moravsik, do you solemnly swear that you will faithfully discharge according to law your duties as a Groton Town Councilor to the best of your ability, so help you God?
I do.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Let Rich get seated. Rich, did you bring your tag from before? All right, excellent. You saved, what, $3 already?
Well, 24, I think Betsy told me one time.
Yeah?
Something like that.
All right. The next is recognitions, awards, and memorials, and we recess for 2016-0285, a public hearing on an ordinance amending ordinance number 229 and the enterprise zone ordinance. Is there anybody who has signed up to speak? Or do you want to read the notice? Is that what we do?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll read the notice and I'll bring up to see
Okay.
if anyone has signed up. Town of Groton Notice of Public Hearing. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held by the Town Council of the Town of Groton, Connecticut on Tuesday, December 6, 2016 at 7:30 p.m. in Community Room 1, Town Hall Annex, 134 Groton Long Point Road, Groton, Connecticut, on the ordinance introduced at the Town Council meeting held November 15, 2016, entitled Introduction of an Ordinance to Amend the Enterprise Zone Ordinance Number 229. The full text of the ordinance appeared in the New London Day newspaper on Monday, November 28, 2016.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hunt. Has anybody signed up to speak in this public hearing?
There is no one, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, there's no one to speak. Would any counselors? Ready? All right. Then we move to close the public hearing. I'm closing the public hearing. Consider it closed. So we move on to, there are no recognitions, awards, or memorials. Next is citizens petition. Is there anybody signed up for a citizens petition?
Mr. Mayor, there
and we're going to go right by that and their response. Would someone like to move the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to move the consent calendar. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That passes 7 to 0 to 0. Communications and reports. Councilor Antipus.
Nothing to report.
Councilor Morton.
Yes, I attended the law enforcement night at the Elks Club, I think it was about a week ago, and officers from our department as well as several other departments in the area were recognized for various things. It was well-attended, and it was a really good turnout.
Thank you very much. Deb?
I was not able to get to march in the parade because I was working, but I did actually catch the last half of it. It was a nice evening for a parade, the Groton Lights Parade. Nothing else.
Thank you. Councilor Watson?
One thing, I went to the Eastern Connecticut Chamber breakfast where they recognize nonprofits and they give awards out to the nonprofit organizations and outstanding people last Friday.
Very good. Councilor Grimm?
Nothing?
Councilor Moravsik?
The only thing I have is tomorrow is December 7th, and at the Flasher Memorial at 12:30, there'll be a memorial service.
Very good. Thank you. I attended a COG meeting on November 16th. As we noted previously, I met with Mark and Mary and Groton Utilities regarding what we discussed earlier. Groton Sale meeting I attended. Councilor Perizzotti and I attended a Charter Revision Commission meeting on November 21st. I also attended the Elks Law Enforcement Dinner and also the Elks Military Appreciation Dinner. And had a meeting with Mark and Scott Bates. And on December 3rd, walked in the Holiday Lights Parade with Councilor Null and her husband from the RTM gym. No, that was really nice. It was a very nice evening. And that's all I have. So, clerk of the representative town meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The RTM will meet on December 14, 2016 at 7:30 p.m. at the Groton Senior Center.
Thank you. And clerk of the council.
Have 3 items here. Mark Deno and Craig Malin were appointed to the Economic Development Commission. David Perka and George Mathenall were reappointed to the Economic Development Commission. And lastly, the town clerk's office received the Board of Education Administrator's contract, which covers the period of July 1st, 2017 to June 30th, 2020.
Thank you very much.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Town manager.
Yes, just a couple of things, and they all have to do with upcoming events that you all should have been notified of, but just as a reminder, this Friday, the Senior Center Club is having a dance from 7 to 9. Proceeds of that will be used to help pay or defer the cost of a new sign for that complex, both the Senior Center and the library, that the club has generously offered to do some fundraising for. And then on Saturday, this Saturday the 10th, Jim Streeter, and I forget the other gentleman's name, I apologize, have recently written a book on the emergency services in town, and they're having a book signing down at the Par 4 restaurant on Saturday evening. And all of you, a couple things for next week. Next Thursday is a busy evening. That would be the 15th. First of all, it starts off with the captain of the sub-base is having his annual holiday get-together from 5 to 7 p.m. at the Nautilus. And then from 6 to whenever is a retirement celebration in honor of Carol Pratt at the Groton Inn and Suites. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Committee reports. Chairman Watson, personnel appointments.
We met tonight, and I'll have the minutes and recommendations for our next council meeting.
Very good, thank you. Chairman Antipas?
No meeting of the room committee.
Okay. And the committee of the whole did meet 2 weeks ago, and we have several items on the agenda to go over tonight. So, which brings us to new business, 2009-0124, the ethics ordinance. Councilor Antipas.
You have to give it to me.
Perfect.
Referral 2009, that's right, 2009-0124. Now reads, resolution rescinding past resolution, authorizing preparation of a legislative ordinance establishing a code of ethics and an ethics commission. Whereas the Groton Town Council, by resolution dated November 4th, 2015, authorized town staff and the town attorney to prepare a legislative ordinance establishing a code of ethics and an ethics commission to be introduced by the town council. And whereas the council has reviewed a draft code of ethics prepared by the Code of Ethics Task Force, along with comments from town attorney Michael Carey. And whereas the council finds that prohibited conduct and mechanisms for enforcement are addressed in various town charter provisions, the town's personnel policy manual, labor agreements, and Connecticut general statutes, now therefore be it resolved that the town council rescinds resolution number 2015-0269, dated November 4th, 2015, authorizing town staff and the town attorney to prepare a legislative ordinance establishing a code of ethics and an ethics commission to be introduced by the town council, and be it further resolved that this referral is deleted.
Second.
So move.
Gotta wait for it to be moved. All right. We have a motion by Councilor Antipas and a second by Councilor Perizzotti. Is there any discussion on this?
Yeah, I was a little hesitant last time because we were short some members. We're still short a couple of members, although I think, who was missing last time?
Same too.
Whose view don't we have? You weren't here, Greg.
It was Harry.
Yeah, I think Bonnie was here, but Harry was not.
Yeah,
I wasn't here.
You weren't here, so now you are. That's good.
No,
I think, speaking for myself, the reticence in going forward with this has got a lot to do with the fact that it's been around a while, and, you know, yes, there was work that was done, but ultimately, it's really about what's best for the town, and is an ethics ordinance required? And there was a lot of discussion last time, a lot of back and forth, and I think I was kind of like the token holdout because because I could be. We can always start this up again. That's true. I don't know how anybody else feels about this. There are people who've been waiting for this. I think some of them have been waiting for the wrong reasons, frankly, which just underscores the need to pull back from this, because there is a potential element of mischief in something like this. And I think that was one of the reasons why we felt that this might not be a great idea. But I'll turn it over to somebody else. Anybody else have any comments?
Great.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't here, but I think I'm in favor of an ethics ordinance. Potentially, you know, I know this is just a motion to rescind this, and I know we talked about potentially reworking some of the language going forward if we did decide that we wanted to still look at this. So I think I'm in favor in the general aspects of having one.
Councilor Morton?
When I was going through my packet and reading about the discussion and everything that took place at the meeting last week, which I missed, I was fully prepared to vote against approving the ethics ordinance, because I think it doesn't give us anything we don't already have. All it does is add another layer to cover the same things that are already covered by virtually all of the contracts, the personnel policy, the town charter. It just adds another layer of government, and I think the opportunity to abuse the purpose of an ethic ordinance kind of outweighs any advantage that it gives us.
Thank you. Richard?
I think since 2009, when they first brought this up, certainly there should have been some issue brought up for an ethics violation, and I don't believe anything was brought up at this time.
Correct.
So as a result, I think that we could table this defer it to for another time. I don't see any purpose to have this. It's like she said, it's another layer, and it could be misused in certain circumstances. Initially, I was for it, but when you look at all of the information that's here and the history of it, it shows that nobody brought up any issues. At least nothing came to light that I heard. And certainly, if we had issues, we would have brought it up, and we would have been able to say, yes, this is why we need an ethics committee. So until something like that happens, I don't believe we need one.
Thank you. Councilor Watson?
Yeah, I'm going to vote for this resolution as stated here, and I'll tell you, I've been here for a long time, and I have never seen 9 pages of background as part of our agenda. There's almost 9 pages here. We all took the same oath that we heard a new councilor take tonight. And I think that kind of covers an awful lot of it. And I feel really bad because Councilor Antipas worked very hard on this. He worked hours and hours and hours on it, and that part of it makes me sad, but that's all I have to say.
I'll just sell it to another time.
Yeah, just because there's not been any ethical issues brought to the table, I don't think that necessarily means there hasn't been issues that have been out there that just haven't been uncovered. So I guess I don't understand the fear for the abuse to this thing. I think some of the language needs rewritten, potentially, reworked, but I guess I don't understand why everybody's afraid of it, so.
Do you want to lead the next charge for the ethics ordinance? Or? We'll let you consider that.
Sure.
All right. Did you want to say something? Dave?
Yeah, there were a number of issues. One was and I pointed this out at the beginning in 2009, and actually was written up as sort of a tongue-in-cheek by the reporter for the day at the time, and I pointed out that as far as I knew, this was basically a solution in search of a problem, and it was written up as, Groton claims to have clean government, quote unquote. But I think that is our collective experience. If there is a problem when you consider the code's meant to cover officials and employees, well, officials can get booted out of office, they can get not reappointed. If it's something really egregious, it could border on a criminal. If it's an employee, because remember, the code was intended to sort of dovetail with collective bargaining agreements, so most of our employees are subject to those anyway. So there are a lot of real no-go zones. This does not go into the city, for example. This does not go into the fire districts, in case anybody was entertaining that notion. We have not vetted this with the Board of Education, to whom I think it does apply. So it would have a long way to go. The other issue is, aside from the mischief, is given the size of the town, actually populating a commission like this and devoting staff time to making sure that it operates properly. We're kind of borderline in that respect. So overall, I think the argument from council was that, again, this is like a solution in search of a problem, basis for mischief, already mechanisms in place, and you're going to have a hard time actually taking it from an ordinance into reality. And that was the basis for, it's not so much fear, Greg, as it was just the realization that maybe it's an impractical venture.
Thank you, Dean. Anybody else? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That passes 6-1 to 0.
Does it?
Two. There was 2 no's.
There was 2 no's? Who else
Yeah.
was a no?
Greg and Dee.
Do you need 6?
Need 5.
No, we need 5. I just didn't see. Okay, so 5 to 2 to 0. I'm sorry.
I gotta,
That's fine. Next is 2016-0189 tax increment financing. Councilor Morton.
What page is that on? Jesus.
It's 9 pages in,
11.
It's in the back.
on page 11.
Let me get to it, all these pages.
Page 11.
Okay. 2016-0189, tax increment financing. Resolution to endorse utilization of funds for tax increment financing study and analysis. Whereas the town of Groton has completed a townwide market analysis with a recommendation to research and implement tax increment financing in Groton, and whereas the Office of Planning and Development Services has received a scope of work from Camoin Associates for $51,563 for tax increment financing plan development, policy development, and financial analysis. And whereas OPDS proposes to defer some proposed planning and economic development projects for fiscal year 2017 in order to use that funding for the research, planning, and analysis of tax increment financing. And whereas OPDS proposes to utilize the following sources of funding for this tax increment financing project: $15,000 from salary savings, $20,000 from account 10460-5290 by deferring the proposed Pequannock Bridge design standards and planning project, $11,000 from account 10466-5290 that was proposed to complete additional lien analysis and process streamlining in OPDS, and $5,563 from account 10465-5290 from the Economic Development Public Relations line item. And whereas the tax increment financing project will be a new economic development tool to encourage development and redevelopment in planned targeted areas in Groton, now therefore be it resolved that the town council hereby endorses OPDS staff to utilize OPDS funding for said tax increment financing project. I so move.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilor Morton, a second by Councilor Perizzotti. Is there any discussion on this? Yeah,
Just one, does this have to go to the RTM at all? No. Okay.
I'm sure we'll be updating them as to.
Yeah, this, here's John, the question. This is with that blue folder that I wasn't here at the meeting that I read separately, that you handed out a few weeks before. Is that? No, you don't have to do it. That's okay.
No, that the blue folder actually had to do with the survey by Great Blue.
Okay, I got it. I did read that. I'm just read lots of things.
Councilor Grimm?
So study and analysis. So let's say, it's a great thing. We're going to implement this. What's the follow-on cost to come up with a plan, regulations, whatever format they're in to implement this thing?
This is the funding to study, analyze, and implement. Now, each time a new development would come in, we may need a firm like Camoin to help us do some of the back-end financial analysis to just make sure if we're entering into agreements to have, public infrastructure built, how is that being financed? So some of that, each time we do a TIF, we'd need some help on that. But that would be something that would come before the council we'd be talking to each time. So this is going to set up the policy, the framework, and help us through the first tax increment financing project.
Yeah.
So is this going to be like a zoned area, like we're going to pick these couple different zoned areas throughout the town, and these are the areas that this kind of financing can be accomplished in? Or is this a one-time, that one project that we've talked about?
No, so these, this would be potentially in a number of different areas in town. We are limited by, we can use tax increment financing for up to 10% of the total grand list for the town. We don't propose doing that. Right now, the main areas that we're targeting, as was stated in the memo, kind of the Route 1 downtown area, around Pequannock. As a second area, Thames Street waterfront in the city. We need to work with the city to do that, and then the Route 184, 117 intersection. So those are, say, the four main areas we'd be looking to implement this. We're talking many years to see that happen. I don't see it taking off somewhere else in the next 5 years. Could there be other areas in town? Yes, but I see it definitely happening more than just at the 184, 117 intersection, if the council wants to keep moving forward with this. So a lot of this money, it's the education process, it's developing a plan, working with you to develop policies, and then once we feel comfortable as a town doing that, then we'd move forward with it.
And that's an ordinance, or how is it implemented? I'm just looking for how is this?
There will be a plan. We have to have a public hearing.
I actually can't remember if there's an ordinance that we have to adopt. I have to look through the scope of work. But this firm would take us through soup to nuts, beginning to end.
Right.
So we would, at the end of this process, tax increment financing would be possible in Groton.
Right.
It's not, hey, let's do this and then do another study to implement it. No bait and switch here.
All right, thanks.
Councilor Antipas?
I've voiced reservations in the past, not because I disapprove of the TIF, but only because what we've had is a wonderful presentation from the attorney for a developer who was here, and so happens the attorney not only represents the developer, but he helped craft the TIF legislation in Connecticut. So that's the one side. I'd feel a lot more comfortable, notwithstanding your department's support for your explanation to us. I'd feel more comfortable, and this may never be satisfied, with sort of the alike presentation from the anti-Pullman and Comley, so to speak. Somebody here to say, you know, here's what you should be careful of with TIFs and whatnot. So at this point, I'm hesitating to support moving forward for. So I'll likely not support the resolution at this time.
That's good.
And once we do have this analyzed and these areas are identified, do you come to us each time to say, okay, we're going to allow this development to get these credits, or is it an automatic thing at that point?
No, it's not an automatic thing. This is something that would be worked through the town council, approved by the town council. So this is, I mean, even with our tax abatements that we do, that has to be approved by the council. This is bigger than that.
Okay.
And so, no, we'd be coming to you each time looking for this. The planning commission has to approve a master plan for each site. They still have to go through the normal planning and zoning processes, but this is the educational process to learn about it and to implement it if we want to do it. And then each time we go project by project. Right. So to your concern, this is the opposite side. I mean, Pullman Comley, Mike Andreas, who came and presented, has also presented at many of the CCM meetings. Folks from his firm presented to the COG, not because they were being paid by a developer, but it's something that their firm has done work on, and they've worked on both sides of the aisle on this for both municipalities as well as developers on this. There have been other municipalities in Connecticut that either recently have or are going through this process right now, and the feedback I've gotten is that it's been very positive. We've done, there was an article in the Day last week or the week before talking a little bit about tax increment financing, and there were some things in there that could have confused people, because in Maine there's also tax credit agreements, which are more income tax based, that should not be confused with tax increment financing. There are ways we can structure our policies to set aside certain percentages of that incremental tax. That is decided on by you, not by planning staff.
Thank you. Councilor Antipas, can you tell me again what your concerns are? I just want to understand.
Well, this came to us as an idea. You said the planning is looking for tools for their toolbox for economic development, which we're all for. We had a very lengthy presentation by a fellow who happened to be counsel for a developer who's looking for a TIF. And he also happened to be, he knows all about it because he basically wrote the legislation, or was a part of crafting the legislation. And that's fine. But what I don't have, what I wanted somebody speaking for us. I mean, I can go look, and I have looked, and just just skimmed to find out across the country, not in Connecticut because it's new in Connecticut, across the country, well, in other places that have been, implemented TIFs, has it all been peaches and cream, have there been problems, et cetera? And it is not universally a good thing. I'm not saying it's been a disaster in places, but there have been jurisdictions that have questioned, after implementing TIFs, the utility of the TIF to begin with. Because it all revolves around you will not get this development without the TIF, but for. So are we at that, if we're convinced that we're at that point that, but for the TIF, we're not going to have the development that's coming our way, then by all means, let's do it. That seems to be the chief exception, the people that entered into the TIF business thinking they needed it. In retrospect, they didn't. They felt that they didn't. That's one. But it's all new to me, and I'm thinking, we got a presentation from somebody that says rah, rah, TIF. I want to hear somebody speaking for us, you know, pluses and minuses. It's just a gut feeling that I have.
Okay, thank you, Council Perzana.
The way that I've understood it in the specific area that we're talking about, I really don't see how we could not benefit from the fact that if we give them the opportunity to come in and build, that they can help develop the infrastructure in that particular area. So for me, knowing that every policy decision with this particular TIF is going to come through us, I don't really know where we can actually go wrong. So it's one of those opportunities where I think we kind of need to leave the door open, bring it in, discuss it step by step, let the plan move forward, because this is really, truly, in my eyes, one of the areas of town that has the space to develop, but it needs something like the TIF to help build the infrastructure, because there's really not any solid infrastructure down that area to grow. And so I'm just kind of seeing it as an opportunity to say, okay, you know what, these are one of the dollar, you know, price tag things that I think is worth going in and, you know, going step by step and determining and figuring out what is best. And that's one thing that I like about the direction that we're going in, is we as a town council body, along with the town manager and, you know, the input from the consultants and, you know, the planning department, is they're going to come to us every step of the way, and we're going to be part of that decision process along the way, and we can determine at any point how much we want to reinvest or we don't want to reinvest, or we get to a stage where we're like, oh, wait a minute, maybe this at this stage is the con that might not have been mentioned at the beginning, but we could possibly get through this whole process and be like, oh, hey, this is actually something pretty good. And we put all of our heads together and we looked at all of the steps and made decisions together, and we could end up with something really good. So for me, it's a good opportunity. I think it's worth the investment, and as long as we are brought into the loop and made, you know, part of that decision, which is what we do, the policy side of the town decisions, then I think this is a good direction for us.
Thank you. I mean, I think that from Councilor Antipas, yeah, that I think that the people on the other side who are saying, what about the town, are really John and Paige and the town manager, that if we don't think that they have our best interests in hand, then we should have an ethics ordinance. So from my standpoint, like, they're the people who are the ones who are, you know, watching out. Certainly we can have disagreements, but so from that fear, that's where I take it. The fact of the matter is that this developer, I don't think, you know, when you're looking at developing that big of a parcel and doing what they want to do with it, and not having some of the infrastructure in place, that we're not going to be able to find developers of that size to do that land if we don't, you know, figure out a way to lend a helping hand. And that, you know, we've tried referendums to bond money and failed, and you know, I understand the taxpayers and what their concerns are, that, you know, just because you put in sewer and water down a certain road doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be construction, you know, and development there. But if you're working hand in hand with the developer, and you know, there's no chicken and egg, you know, they're kind of coming together, that the developer wants to, you know, put some large development in a certain location, and we're working hand in hand with them to make sure the infrastructure is there at a where it's not taxing the taxpayers, and it's like it seems to me like a win-win. So I look at John, Mark, and Paige as having our back, and that's why I would support it to keep it moving forward, because this window of opportunity where, you know, it's almost a perfect storm where EB's hiring, there's, kind of a new wave going on, and we need to make sure that we're ready to, we want people to live in Groton and work in Groton, not work in Groton and drive somewhere else home. So that's why I support it. Great.
Yeah, I agree. We need to get some of these developments built ahead of the expansion wave. Otherwise, those new people coming in, won't choose to live here.
Yeah.
So now's the time to act, I think. And one other question: have you been working with the city to try to educate them on TIF and see if they're interested at the same time?
We've had some conversations with folks in the city. In addition, right now, economic development staff is working with the city on a number of issues right now. They had an initial meeting about Groton Heights. Contrary to the article in the paper, we don't have a developer, we don't have a zoning application ready to go yet to change the zoning, but that's something we're working towards. There's this CT Next project. We've Mark and the mayor have been involved in some emails on that the town, the city, and New London are working on together, looking at the themes and how can we build upon some of the assets that we have there. I've spoken to the mayor a couple of times about tax increment financing, have just said, we're here to help. We want to talk about Thames Street. Once we get Camoin and Associates on board, if the council votes to approve of this money, at that point in time, we'll see some real momentum.
Is there any possibility of joining forces to share costs? I mean, have we broached that subject or not?
Well, we're doing the project,
Right.
and this will be for, I don't know if the city will also need to adopt their own policies. I think that's a bridge we'll have to cross as we're going through this process here. But, I mean, we set up the taxing for at least, the town level.
No, I realize that, but have we broached that subject at all, or no?
We have not at this point. I think, this is a policy document first and foremost that we're trying to get together, and hopefully we'll answer some of the questions that Dean and others may have. I think the initial focus is Route 184, though Route 1 may pop in there sooner, who knows? We do the taxing in the town. Our millage rate is higher than the city. We need to move these projects forward, not be arguing who's going to pay for what. This is to the benefit of the entire community. So no, I have not broached the issue of asking the mayor if the city would be willing to pay for some of this study, if that's your question.
No, I'm not talking about arguing. I'm just, EB's expanding, so obviously Thames Street is prime for development.
Hopefully.
And it's all in Groton. It's the same tax base. So I'm thinking more of energizing that part of town to help spur the conversation.
And that's something that we're actually doing right now, working with the city on that Connecticut Next. It's an innovation project. It's funding from the state. We can help, we can encourage, we can be there for support. At the end of the day, we don't control the land uses and the zoning within the city, so that makes it a little bit difficult. But we are reaching out as much as we can to foster a good working relationship between town staff and city staff.
Councilor Moranci?
Yeah, John, does this project include the sewer line going up 117?
Well, that's something that would potentially happen out of this Route 184, 117 project.
Yeah, because there's a lot of commercial along 117.
Thank you. Councilor Morton?
Yeah, I think this is basically a case of how serious are we about economic development in this town, and I think the TIF program is kind of like where the rubber meets the road. I mean, we're going to have to do something. I think your big corporations, even to some extent your smaller businesses, and perhaps more so, they look around for what kind of assistance they can get when they're looking at where to locate a property. So I think that we need to have everything out there that we possibly can do to entice them to come to us. Otherwise, they're going to go somewhere else. Yeah. And I think this is an excellent way of doing it, so I would support it.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That passes 6 to 1 to 0.
Thank you.
Council Perizzotti, appointment of town auditor.
2016-0276, resolution appointing the town auditor, whereas Connecticut state law requires municipalities to appoint an independent auditor to account, verify, and correct the town's accounting records, and whereas the town's contract with the current auditing firm, Bloom Shapiro of West Hartford, will expire upon completion of the FYE 2016 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, and whereas the staff is satisfied with the work that Bloom Shapiro has performed for the town for the last 12 years and feels their knowledge of the town of Groton and its financial practices is desirable, now therefore be it resolved that the firm of Bloom Shapiro and Company, P.C. is hereby appointed as the auditor to the town of Groton for the 3 fiscal years of fiscal year 2017 through fiscal year 2019, and the town to have the option of extending that selection and contract for an additional 2 fiscal years. I so move.
Second.
We have a motion by Council Perizzotti, second by Council Morton. Discussion on this? Hi, Cindy.
Hi, Morty.
Good, how are you?
Good. I think how I just came down, I was asked to provide some additional information about what other towns pay for audit fees and what firms would most likely respond to an RFP. I've also included a best practice from GFOA and a couple of pages from the RFP from 2005, which just shows the calendar. Oh, jeez. Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And the grid that you gave us.
Yes.
Can you explain what the values are going across as for?
Sure. I contacted the municipalities that are right around us, and then the bottom 3 are just Bloom Shapiro clients. So I asked for the number of years that they had been with their firm, their total general fund budget, and the total fee. As you know, or perhaps you don't know, the town of Groton, our total fee is $83,900, but we charge that off to various funds. The town pays the $28,000. We charge part to the Board of Ed, the golf course, the sewer fund, the landfill, the pension, also pay a portion of that. So the only part that's being funded by the general fund is the $28,000. So when I talked to the other towns, I asked them that same question. Do you charge part of your audit fee to other funds? And that's the information that's going to the right. Wow. And Norwich is the one that has the most with utilities in the stadium and the ice rink.
Thank you. Yeah. Mark? And
Just to point out, I mean, when the 4th column where the GF budget, the general fund budget, all of the items after the Board of Ed in most communities are not general fund budget. So you may focus in on the dollar amount of the budget and then look at the fee, but that doesn't tell the whole story, because for us, the golf course budget, the general fund budget, the water pollution control fund budget, are not part of the general fund. They're the other budgets that you approve. Mm-hmm. And so this was a little bit more complicated than we thought it was going to be, trying to get the breakdown from all the communities. So it's not perfect, but it kind of gives you an order of, order of magnitude of what other communities are paying, and the number of years that the various firms have been engaged by some of these communities in the immediate area.
Great.
Yeah, just looking at the figures, it doesn't look like makes a whole lot of sense to switch. But I had a separate question. I remember one of their recommendations being to implement an anonymous fraud tip line. Have we done anything with that?
No, that was part of our management, and we are working with the HR to do that. It's a little bit more complicated to set something up like that, but it is a recommendation. It is something we're looking into, but we have not implemented it at this time.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else? So what's on the table right now is to re-up with Bloom Shapiro. We have a motion and a second.
What's that?
I said,
You need a second?
I think we've had a second. I think we had a motion and a second.
Yep. I think so.
Yeah, it was read by Deb and it was seconded by Councilor Morton. Yep. So, if there's no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That passes 7-0 to 0.
Thank you.
Thank you, thanks for that information, it's helpful.
Sure.
Councilor Watson, how about 2016-0281, adoption of regular meeting schedule?
Sure. Resolution approving 2017 Town Council regular meeting schedule. Be it resolved that the Town Council hereby approves the Town Council regular meeting schedule for 2017 as follows. And this is basically the first and third Tuesday of the month,
Correct.
every single month with the exception of the week of November. The first week of November, it's a Wednesday because of Election Day, instead of the Tuesday, the first Tuesday of November. And all meetings to be held 7:30, Community Room 1, Town Hall Annex, 134 Groton Long Point Road on the first and third, I already said that, Tuesdays of each month, except as noted. I so move.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilor Watson, a second by Councilor Grimm. Any discussion on this?
I would,
Councilor Marzari?
yes, please. So there's been a couple of different conversations, and I would like to just put a general thought on the table and see what everybody else might want to entertain about amending this schedule. So currently, right now, the town council, after tonight, if we agree to this, meets 4 times a month. We have our 2 committee of the wholes and we have our 2 councils. And I would like to put a recommendation for discussion of actually meeting just the first Tuesday of every month as a regular town council meeting. That first Tuesday, we could still have our personnel and appointments committee meeting. We could meet at 7:30 for a regular town council meeting. Therefore, it would actually free up 1 extra week out of the month. 9 times out of 10, it's very easy to put a special meeting on the calendar. There's also a lot of times where we have to have certain meetings, whether it's with the Board of Education or the city or the whoever, our state representatives. I mean, there's always opportunities to have more and more meetings. And based on a general consensus, don't seem to think that this interferes with our charter. It still gives us an opportunity to get our business passed on the first Tuesdays. So I'm just putting that out there for discussion.
Anybody have any comments? Councilor Antipas?
Yeah, we had talked, I can't remember when now, before, about,
That's very succinct.
about, I try to keep things focused, yeah, about dealing with how we process the work and having meetings for the sake of having meetings and so on. So I think it's a very interesting suggestion that we boil down, and you're right, the charter does not lay out a meeting schedule. It just says that by a certain date, I won't even quote it, by a certain date, once the council's sworn in, or annually, the council will adopt its annual, its meeting calendar, and that's it. So we can meet once a year if we wanted to, and everything else be a special meeting, I suppose. So it's an interesting suggestion. So the way it would work is we would meet the first Tuesday, and then we'd have 2 cows, basically, and should we need a special town meeting, because we don't formally take action without the town council meeting. So if something comes up and we got to have a meeting on the 3rd Tuesday, we're available. Would we be around for that? I mean, except for the summer. I mean, right now, some of us make ourselves scarce in the summer or other times of the year, but knowing that our 3rd Tuesdays are free, is there any, I'm just floating this, any possibility that we will not be able to get enough people together for a meeting on the 3rd Tuesday?
Well, right now, you've actually canceled your first meeting in July, according to this schedule, so it's easy enough to fix that and say, well, let's meet the 3rd Tuesday instead of the first Tuesday, because first Tuesday is,
Right.
July 3rd.
July, yeah, it's right around the July 4th holiday.
I mean, considering that the town council meetings are the formal meetings, we take formal action, but they, in essence, are kind of a rubber stamp and not a rehash. Very, very seldomly is it a rehash in terms of discussion of what we've done at the COW meeting, and what would be the harm in meeting that one time unless we absolutely had to meet again. Sorry.
Councilor Watson and Councilor Green.
Yeah, one of the reasons we do this is so we have meetings set so people know when we're going to meet, and we post this on the calendar. Is that correct, Antoinette? And it's a requirement for us to do that, to have our regular meetings. But I also, Antoinette, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we can change this if we want. We can go through the same thing and make a resolution and change our calendar in February for the rest of the year. So we won't have to have a special meeting. So we could try it a while if there was an amendment put on the floor. And if it doesn't work, in February we can say, you know, we're going to need 2 meetings a month and change our calendar so we don't have to have special meetings all the time. I just throw that out there for discussion, that's all.
Councilor Grimm?
Yeah, and we could always tack on the special town council meeting at the end of the COW meeting if we had to, you know, something that we needed to pass. I mean, that seems like that'd be the opportune time. The second COW meeting, if you had business you had to get passed, you could always.
But my issue with that is that you have space in between so people can express their opinions. If, in other words, you don't do them right after one after the other. But I mean that doesn't interfere with the point of doing this. I think that, you know, Councilor Watson, what you're saying makes sense, that we can try it. And I mean, it seems to me like there's usually something on the committee of the regular meeting. You know, we generally, some weeks there's longer than others, but they generally, you know, there certainly could be room for giving it a shot. Yeah, that's what it was.
The only other downside to it, and I'll just throw this out there, is that is the one time where citizens can come speak to us. You know, we don't have a part on our agenda for committee of the whole for people. So citizens, if there isn't even anything on the agenda, if something's bothering somebody, they can come here and speak to us at a regular council meeting. But I'm willing to go with the flow, basically.
Councilor Grimm?
And then it also limits the amount of business that we can pass on to the RTM, since the RTM only meets once a month, I guess, too, potentially.
Yeah, but I think we're setting it up so it's the first, so it would be before their meeting, which is good. Would it be a waste to set the calendar and cancel the meeting, the third meeting, or just?
I think what would happen is if we have something already set up, we already have the third Thursday set up, a third Tuesday set up. Which organization, right? You'll always have the temptation to take the prior COW meetings items and put them on that third Thursday. So it'll never be empty. Once you put the placeholder in there, it'll always be used. So always find a way to use it. So either we're going to have it or not.
Okay. Any more discussion? Go ahead, Jim.
Just, Mark, do you have any thoughts?
Well, I think, despite the fact that in the last couple of months, you've had quite a few meetings get done fairly early, my gut sense is we meet way too much.
That's what I was thinking.
And it's maybe because we keep talking about things, so I haven't really thought about are we meeting too much because we're having too many regular council meetings, or are we having too many special committee, the whole meetings, or are we sometimes maybe just kicking the can down the road knowing that, well, we can talk about it in 2 weeks. There is, I mean, the downside to having special meetings is that they're special meetings. You're really limited what you can, once the agenda goes out, that's it. You can't go looking at the referral list and saying, let's deal with this or let's do with that. Though you don't do that very often, but once the agenda gets posted, that's it. And there is something to be said about having, I'm trying to think of a way, if you wanted to have the flexibility of canceling the second regular town council meeting a month on a regular basis, how we can get the word out to folks that, geez, if you really want to talk to the council, you really need to get to the first Tuesday, or whatever you ultimately decide. Because special meetings, there have been instances, not very often, where there's a lot of running around to make sure everything is on the agenda and something doesn't pop up at the last minute. It takes away some flexibility. Not the end of the world, but I mean, I was really going to, before the last part of this discussion, maybe suggest, let's adopt these schedules and try to cancel one of the meetings going forward, and see how that goes. But either way is fine. You're absolutely correct, whoever said it, that, you know, you can always change your schedule. There's a 45-day period or a 30-day period. Everything would be a special meeting, but ultimately, you know, if you did this in February, you wanted to change it by the end of March, you would be back on a regular meeting schedule. So it's just that 45, I think it's 45 days that after you post your regular meeting schedule, everything is a special meeting until the end of that period.
What if we amended it to cancel
I've got them all written out here.
the first 3 months, January 17th, February 21st, March 21st? And then if it works, if we're all satisfied with it, then we redo the schedule for the rest of the year as opposed to going the other way around. I guess a 6 of one, half dozen of another, but.
I agree. 6 half dozen all the other.
But if we have 40, you know, if we change our mind, then we have to wait 45 days to do it.
Is that in FOIA, Mark? It's not in the charter, is it? It's in
No,
Freedom of Information?
not in the
Yeah, it's where state statute requires that boards and commissions have to post their meetings annually. We try to start that process in November, December. I don't believe it's in the charter at all.
It's not.
And I don't recall if it's 45 days or 30 days.
I believe it's 30 days. I can double check. I believe it's 30 days. What you can always do now is you can adopt this resolution, give it a try. If you find after 2 or 3 months, say, no, we want to do a new yearly meeting schedule, you can do it. And then any meetings that are under the 30 days would have to be called special meetings, but then once you're back on track, that would be your yearly meeting schedule.
Gotcha.
Just an idea, something to think about.
I'm just going to propose an amendment.
Go.
I'm going to amend this schedule for the first Tuesday only of every month,
Except for July, right?
except for July, which would be the 3rd Tuesday. That way, there's at least one solid town council meeting where citizens can come and speak. It's set in stone, and it's for the year.
We have a motion by Council Perizzotti and a second by Council Grimm to amend the referral, the resolution, to be the first Tuesday of the month, except for the month of July, where it would be the 3rd.
That's correct, the 18th.
Right.
The 18th, yep.
Any further discussion on this amending? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Amending of the passes 7-0 to 0? Yeah, we will
I'm going to
vote.
make one comment.
Yes,
before-
go ahead, sure.
My only comment is personnel is going to meet on, if we pass it, the first Tuesday, so whoever gets put forward at that meeting won't be placed on a commission until the first Tuesday of the whole month. It's going to take a whole month for somebody to get onto a board or a commission.
True, unless we make a motion to suspend the rules, if we're that.
Absolutely,
If
absolutely.
that is a tool that we can use.
That's fine, I
if we
just
feel-
want to throw that out there as a piece of information.
Okay.
If I might, I thought you, that appointments met the first Tuesday only.
Right,
In any event, right.
Yes.
and we
Oh, I
ratified
see
the
what you're
third.
saying, yeah. By the way, it's 30 days. I just checked with FOIA, it's 30 days. Yeah.
Okay. So now we're going to vote on the amended, as amended, thank you. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That passes 7-0 to 0. Thank you, Council Perizzotti. Making changes happen. Next up, 2016-0282. Council Grimm, can you take that, please?
Yes. Resolution approving the 2017 Committee of the Whole regular meeting schedule. Be it resolved that the Town Council of Hillsborough approves the Committee of the Whole regular meeting schedule for 2017 as follows, which is the 2nd and 4th Tuesday. There's probably a few exceptions in there. All meetings begin at 6 p.m. in the Community Room 1, Town Hall Annex, 134 Groton Long Point Road on the 2nd and 4th Tuesday of each month. I so move.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilor Grimm, a second by Councilor Watson. Harry?
Yeah, Wednesday, November 14th is really Tuesday, November 14th. I looked on my phone.
Say again?
Tuesday.
It should be Tuesday, November
Yes.
14th.
Yes.
It's just a typo.
Thank you for that. Any discussion on this? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That passes 7 to 0 to 0. Councilor Moravsik, can you take 2016-02 through?
20160283, adoption of the 2017 Personnel and Appointments Committee regular meeting schedule. Resolution approving the 2017 Town Council Personnel and Appointments Committee regular meeting schedule. Be it resolved that the Town Council hereby approves the Town Council Personnel and Appointments Committee regular meeting schedule for 2017 as follows, and that's the first Tuesday of the month,
Except for July.
except for July and in November.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this? Seeing none. Oh, Harry?
It's 6 o'clock, not 6:30, is it not?
No.
That's 6
Oh,
o'clock.
that was also me last time, sorry.
Oh.
We've been meeting at 6 o'clock, and it seems like there's a large gap in between the 6
Okay.
o'clock and the 7:30, so I proposed the change to make it at 6:30, so therefore we have a solid hour instead of an hour and a half.
Fine with
Sounds
me.
good.
Okay.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That too passes 7 to 0 to 0.
Move we adjourn.
Adjourned.